Hello, everyone.
Claire is back. Hello.
Yes. Yes, I'm back again. Um, is this a good volume for everyone? Perfect. Okay. So today I'm here to discuss a project that I'm very excited about, which is lgbtDB, a collaborative queer resource and pilot data area. My name is Claire Kronk. I use she, her pronouns. On most wiki projects, I go by SuperRaptor123 because I was introduced to the internet through Zoo Tycoon back in the day. And with that, I'll head to the next slide. So this presentation is going to have 4 parts: a brief introduction of myself, a bit of an intro to lgbtDB, a quick section on contributing, and a brief conclusion. Next slide. So first and foremost, my background. I'm an assistant professor and an NIH First Faculty Scholar while that program still exists. It's currently back and forth of being canceled under the US DEI purge at the Institute for Health Equity Research at the Icahn School of Medicine in Mount Sinai. I'm an ontologist and terminologist by trade. A lot of philosophers don't like me using that term specifically, but this is ontologies in the computational sense, which are basically these large language discussions that underpin knowledge graphs. I've worked with a number of organizations about terminologies over the years, mostly in healthcare, such as the International Organization for Standardization, the Systematized Nomenclature for Medicine, and Health Level 7, which underpin a lot of medical terminologies. Next slide. So my first foray into this field was actually when I lived in Tübingen, very briefly as an exchange scholar there. And I worked on a program that was looking at these very large proteins that existed within bacteria that were so large that if they were made in full, that they would cause the bacterial cell to explode. And it was a very interesting project. But unfortunately, when I came to the conclusion that I did, I thought it was very novel. We figured out that 30 years ago, somebody else had come up with the exact same solution already. But because the bacteria had a different scientific name that wasn't available in major databases, we didn't see it in our initial literature review. And so that really propelled me into my PhD thesis, focusing on language and how language misinterpretation can affect science and healthcare more broadly. I was also going through my own transition during my PhD process and seeing personally how the medical system really impacts queer folks specifically. And I wanted to provide better education to healthcare professionals on how to use the correct language and privacy and confidentiality with their queer patients. And so that's why I started to create what I called the Gender, Sex, and Sexual Orientation Ontology, or the GSSO. Next slide. And so that became my PhD thesis. And so we ended up creating this beautiful little web portal. It was my first foray into creating websites. And we had this wonderful terminology of about 15,000 entities. It was very exciting. Every term that I learned and got to create was just, I don't know, a moment of bliss, really. And coming to know the community that I was engaging with and as a part of was really wonderful. Unfortunately, we weren't able on the budget that I had to support a large scale qualitative assessment because we would have to pay, a number of people to go over every one of those 15,000 terms individually. And so for a long time in my postdoctoral work and in my current work, I wanted to support that qualitative assessment. Fortunately, right now in the United States, the funding just really isn't there. Even before this time, it was difficult to find and secure funding for something like this. So if you know anyone who might be willing, please let me know because I would love to support that. Next slide. And I was able to use the GSSO to connect to a number of different health standards worlds, including Health Level 7. This is the interchange format that is used when you're converting an electronic health record from one program to another. So the two major healthcare EHR programs in the world are Cerner and Epic. And so let's say, for example, you have vaccinations in a Cerner record, like from Australia. Most Australian electronic health records are using Cerner, and you move to Canada, and most electronic health records in Canada use Epic. You have to be able to send over your vaccination records for immigration. And so Health Level 7 is the way that we interchange EHRs to one another. And so I was working specifically on sex and gender. It was very fascinating to be able to work on this. Unfortunately, as of last year, nothing's moving forward anymore. And in fact, a lot of programs are now moving things backwards because there's so much concern over privacy and confidentiality. I would love to be also able to work on this in the future, but it's still in a kind of controversial state right now. Next slide. And so this leads me to lgbtDB. Next slide. So, okay, I had this huge GSSO project. I wanted to make it easier for others to contribute to. I was seeing a lot of the resources that I was using disappearing in real time. It's something like a huge portion of the internet from 2012 is gone. Very little of it is archived, and career resources are severely under archived. Um, as well, I only speak a couple languages. I don't have the expertise necessary to make it a more global contribution. And so I needed a way to be able to contribute more specifically. And as well to prevent the proliferation of mis and disinformation. Next slide. And so this led me to want to create my own Wikibase. Wikibase is the software that underlies Wikidata. So a large portion of why we wanted to create our own Wikibase instead of apply directly to Wikidata is because we wanted this to be a place where individual GLAM institutions, so galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, could add their individual collections and could add information that might be outside of the scope of Wikidata. So for example, there are so many different gender identities and pronoun combinations, hundreds of thousands of them. And not every single one is used by a person who might be considered notable by Wikidata standards. But in my mind, that doesn't necessarily make it that it shouldn't be collected or recorded. A lot of these are on fandom like wikis, which are notoriously fragile. Many of the LGBT fandom wikis were actually all forcibly combined about 7 or 8 years ago. And so hundreds of thousands of pages were lost in that transition. And so very little of that was archived, and I'm still trying to kind of put together from the ashes what I can. And so making our own Wikibase was that way forward. Next slide. So for a very long time, I was self-hosting this Wikibase. Unfortunately, in academia, when you leave an institution for another, they usually lock you out of your previous resources. So I was at the University of Cincinnati, and the second I graduated, I couldn't update the website anymore. Then I went to Yale, and I left Yale, and I couldn't access the Wikibase anymore. And in fact, they took it down before I even had a copy that was full. And so I lost actually about 25% of the data I had worked on previously. Luckily, wikibase.cloud, which is a fantastic resource, really jumped in to help clear the gap. When I was trying to find better hosting resources, most of them were going to charge me a minimum of like $6,000 a month to host a Wikibase. And so wikibase.cloud was willing to help for free, which was a fantastic opportunity. I highly recommend if you run a GLAM or you know somebody who does, wikibase.cloud is truly the way forward. And it also has integration with Wikidata, So you can cross query Wikibases, which is fantastic. Next slide. So in order to outline the database, I started with a number of existing vocabularies. So you'll notice if you are on Wikidata that sometimes many of these things are combined into individual pages. So you might have one page that is agender, and that page for agender person might be the same Wikidata entity, even though we know that those are different things. And so what I started doing was I was mapping a number of existing resources to one another. So for example, the Homosaurus, which I used to be on the board for, shout out to KJ Rawson, who is also the manager of the Digital Transgender Archive, for being kind of a major force in keeping the Homosaurus alive. We could map it to the Library of Congress subject headings. And then this lovely group had made mappings from the medical subject headings to the Library of Congress subject headings. And so what we did is we started from building out from the Homosaurus to all of these other vocabularies. It's still a work in progress, but we've got hundreds of thousands of terms, broader, narrower, related, etc., which are fantastic, which when we upload stuff from GLAMS, we try to connect them to these different vocabularies so it's easier to search. Next slide. And so we've been working on a number of projects through lgbtDB. And so I can actually go ahead and put the link in chat. So it is just lgbtdb.wikibase.cloud. And then is it okay if I attempt to share? I know it might be complicated, so if that's not okay, that's totally fine.
I can give you co-host permissions.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I'm wrong. Vic can give you co-host permission.
No worries.
Yes.
Also for the, oh, okay. Cool, okay. So this is what the main page looks like. First and foremost, I will say blanket content warning. There's a lot of information included here. So for example, we have information on slurs. There's a lot of historical data here. So for example, from the Remembering Our Dead project, we link to a lot of those pages as well. It's one thing I am attempting to work on if you have technical expertise, is to create a content warning filter so that we can better make sure that people are only introduced to things that they would like to see. There's also obviously some build out that's necessary for the in the news and anniversary sections. It's been a slow process. Currently, I'm the only major developer. So I appreciate any help when and if it comes. Currently, this is the about section. And we have a lot of discussion, for example, on different data resources and data policies. As Crystal and I talked about yesterday, we've worked through a lot of policies specific to identities. The pronouns policy has a lot that we've been going over for different types of documentation. And we're hoping to get to the others soon. It's definitely been complex as, especially within fiction, there are a lot of different ways you can class certain things. I remember a very lively discussion about the doctor from Doctor Who of how to class different pronouns. It's still up for debate, I think, on the main Wikidata page. But the reason for us doing this on lgbtDB is we can document everything, we can showcase how it works, and then when we go to Wikidata and make a proposal, we can show them, we've tested this, this is how this works, we have these use cases, and so it helps us to propel things forward without ending in edit wars or flame wars, which is easier for pushing things forward. As Crystal mentioned, there's a lot of bullying that can happen and some issues when you take things first to Wikidata. Many times there might be discussions of feasibility. And so this helps us to showcase, here's why we need this, here's how this works, here are examples. And so I've been working through several different identities and other related pages. These are kind of all up in the air at this stage, but I think the next one we might move to is honorifics after this. We'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of overlap between pronouns and honorifics, so it's easier. When we look at individual pages, I also make sure every day, I know there are a lot of discussions about where do I find sources for Wikidata or for Wikipedia. Every day I run an RSS feed of about 100 or so queer resources. Granted, most of these are in English. So if you have non-English resources, I've just started to collate a few. Please let me know so I can start collating those for the main lgbtDB. What this allows you to do, for example, is let's say I'm like writing about trans man Alan Hart. I can see, okay, what are all of these pages that have come up around Alan Hart? I have the entirety of the digital transgender archive within here archived as well. So that means it's easier to find stuff for trans folks at this stage. I'm working on adding other stuff as well. But like, for example, if I want to find more about Gladys Bentley, I can find a number of resources that then you could potentially cite on other wiki projects. Or as well, there are sometimes things that might not make it onto the main Wikidata. So for example, there's a great project I love called Mapping the Gay Guides that goes over US resources in the US from around the 1950s to the 1990s. Most of these places are defunct, and maybe just being a gay bar isn't enough for notability on Wikipedia. But we still want to record that history and make sure that people know where they were, where things happened, and have a better idea of how the queer landscape has changed over time. And so we've been working on translating a lot of the gay guides into lgbtDB as well. You can also query a number of things through here. I have been working through quite a bit of mapping over the days, but as you can see, as an American, as a US American, I have a little bit more knowledge of the United States than other places. But I am working on, especially in Southeast Asia and East Asia as well, mapping, for example, queer historical places, gay bars, queer clubs, things of that nature. And if you have information or expertise in that area, we're always looking for build out, obviously keeping in mind current safety protocols. We don't add things that, for example, I'm not going to add gay bars that are still operating in Russia, but I am going to add those that have been shut down because I do think that is important history to keep in mind. So there are a few other queries that we've kind of built in as well. I'm adding a lot of the gender identities from the Gender Wiki, which is a fandom wiki. There are thousands there, and as you can see so far, I only have almost 200. So there's a lot of work to be done. There was a point in time when African LGBT works were being added on with different Wikipedias for, I think Nacho Cesare was adding a lot of those. So he asked me to kind of look over a few of these. And so I was able to do a little bit of research there. And so I've been adding these things over time, like for example, different pronoun sets in English. Like I said, we're still adding gay bars, of which, there's a lot of build out to still be done, things of that nature. And so I think with that, I can go ahead and probably stop the demo and return to slides. I also might be going over time, so please stop me at any point. Okay, next slide. Okay, so if you would like to contribute, okay, 2 minutes. Next slide. So making an account is pretty easy. Unfortunately, I do get between 1 and 10 spam accounts a week that people try to create. So if you are pre-vetted in one of the LGBT Wikimedia groups, it's way easier for me to add you. We do have spam protection. As you can see, there is a CAPTCHA that's done. And then I have to verify, you have to verify an email address, and then I have to verify you as well. So even with 3 levels of protection, it can take a while. So please be patient with me as I'm going through things. Next slide. And there's some of the ongoing tasks in our about pages. Next slide. And then of course, areas of technical development are ongoing. Currently, property constraints, which kind of make sure that Wikidata is pretty uniform, are not on wikibase.cloud for processing reasons. So we're going through things very, very slowly. As well, we're still working on some pipelines from smaller GLAM projects in the LGBT space. If you have collections that you would like to make available but aren't sure if they're a right fit for Wikidata, we can help with that and potentially pipeline those into Wikidata if it's appropriate. Or if there's data that you're not sure how to model, I would love to help with that if I can. If you do have technical knowledge and would like to help us apply for better, like in the news and on this day sections, that's fantastic as well. Or if you have things you'd like us to add for the RSS feeds to capture. So, for example, if you're writing about current events in a particular country that pertain to LGBT people, we can help kind of provide resources for you to help write those pages. Next slide. And so lgbtDB is a unique environment that allows us to stage information to be moved into the main Wikidata as well as beyond Wikidata's scope. So while it's not currently a Wikimedia project in the strictest sense, we like to think of it as a cousin project rather than a sister, maybe. And so having that space, I think, is very important because unlike Wikidata, as was discussed yesterday, sometimes people's dead names are notable enough that they are included in Wikidata or they are included in Wikipedia. We don't include them at all. So if you want access to data, but that's something you don't want to see, we can provide slightly different policy standards that allow you to have a hopefully safer environment for adding and updating and not dealing with, for example, bullying or other things. And then when we pipeline stuff in, it's not like you would be the immediate target of that bullying. Instead, lgbtDB takes the brunt as like a whole rather than an individual. And so we're very much looking forward to contributors. And so if you'd like to contact me in one of the Telegram groups, please let me know. Or if there are resources you'd like me to consider adding, I'm always open to it. So thank you so much. Next slide. All right, I know I'm over time, so I sincerely apologize, but thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
You don't need to apologize for being 2 minutes over time. It's all good.
That's okay. And we still have time to take maybe 1 or 2 questions from people needing clarification. So maybe if you have a question or you need to ask for some clarification, you can raise your hand or you can bring up your message. Somebody is asking, is there a link for the Telegram group?
So any of the Wikimedia LGBT, so I'm currently in the Spanish one, the English one, and the Wikidata LGBT group. So I don't know if any of you have links to those groups because there's a separate verification process you have to go through for those groups.
Okay. Well, I think we will be able to share that later on after the conference. I can see. I don't know whether it's Chaja or no. So I don't know. And I can see Ayokomi. So CHJA, you first, and then I'll go to Ayokomi.
Yeah, I have no question, just a remark. So maybe questions.
Yeah. Please go on with your remark. I think we can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Okay, I always do it the other way around. Claire, I just wanted to make you aware of the image filter history. So I would do it's just my personal opinion, but I would do the filter opt-in and not, opt-out, because there's an image filter history on Wikipedia where the foundation wanted to, install some image filters, and it was really not a good idea because the editors, want to create the articles for an adult audience, and they want to, edit it themselves and not some algorithm or something hiding images or so. So just that you are aware of that. That's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ayakami.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Claire. That's a really, really very beautiful project. And funny enough, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Thank you so much. So while you were speaking, I was just going through to explore the page, the site, and then to see how it works. And I think I actually even requested an account as well. But my question is on the integration. So a lot of the things, a lot of the items or different content on the page are actually linked from Wikidata. So is it not possible for you to create a simple labs API that can actually link straight into Wikidata into the site? So it means that you don't need to create a new page. So we just have a category to say, oh, this category is for LGBTQI plus related. And then once they have the property on that Wikidata item, it links directly into the site. So you don't have to get there and start creating afresh. Because I was just scanning through and I realized that you don't have, for now, we don't have content about Africans on the page. I think you only even have probably one Nigeria. There's a lot of content about Africa not there. So I feel it might be faster that there's an integration that goes from Wikidata property that just goes straight into the site. And that means you don't have to create from scratch. I don't know if that's clear enough. Thank you.
No, that's an excellent question. So we did consider starting from an initial set from Wikidata. The issue is if we ported all the information at once, we were going to take in a lot of dead names, and there was variable quality data on Wikidata to begin with for many of these figures, whether that was various properties that weren't being used in a way that we thought was accurate. And so porting directly wasn't really something we could do from Wikidata to lgbtDB. In the future, we might make that automatic, but I think having it manually curated at this stage provides a better cited experience and more of a human touch, honestly. That being said, there's still a lot, and I mean a lot of work to do. It is just really me at this stage. So while I'm working as quickly as I can, I definitely have some spots that I have not added stuff in. And I do apologize. If there is stuff you would like me to add specifically, I can definitely prioritize it though.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Claire. Owen?
There was a question in chat that I'm just going to read out.
Oh,
They asked in Spanish, but Guillermo has helpfully translated it, so I'll just read their translation. How can people contribute on queer topics in their own countries into lgbtDB?
All you have to do is have a verified account, and that's it. The entire process works very similar to Wikidata. So a lot of it will translate immediately into your language using your browser settings. That's it.
Okay. Another question, and I think after that we might be able to move on. And it's someone said, I'm a freshie on Wikipedia. Just one question: is it possible to flag content if LGBT offensive in wiki articles?
I answered that in chat. The best way to handle that is to bring it up in our Telegram group, because some editors are very much not concerned if content is offensive to queer people. So bringing it up on wiki isn't always helpful. There's Pretty Boy has said that they would like to ask a question. Do you want to go ahead, Pretty Boy? Does it include all things regarding the queer community, such as law changes in various countries? Like Wikipedia generally has articles, LGBT rights in country name. Will that exist in lgbtDB as well?
Great question. So far, what I have been able to add is there is this website called Equaldex that has different ratings for different countries. I've added all of that data, as well as all of the data from a couple other LGBT ranking sites. I have a couple of those queries pre-built out, so you can see changes over time in the query editor. But as an example, I'll post like one of the pages in chat so as to not go over time to show you what that looks like. I would love to add individual pages for example, every bill, every law. So while that might be considered a bit excessive in Wikidata, we want to capture all of that in lgbtDB.
There's one more question in chat, but perhaps you could answer that in chat, because I think we've run 10 minutes long and we don't want to eat into all of the break.
I'm so sorry.
No. We'd have
you're-
stopped you had we wanted to.
Thank you so much, Claire. Really, thank you. You are doing so many amazing projects. Yesterday was one, another one today. So thank you so much. Thanks.